Welcome to the deep dive. For anyone out there architecting enterprise systems right now, you already know the stakes. You are, sitting in the hot seat managing these massive sprawling operations.
Yeah.
And you're scaring down this mandate to modernize your communication infrastructure. And honestly, it is a brutal landscape to navigate
Oh, absolutely. It really is.
because every vendor is shouting that you need to ditch your aging on-premise PBX systems for, these flexible AI-ready platforms.
Yeah.
But separating the actual architectural shifts from the marketing noise, I mean, that's a full-time job.
Right. It's exhausting for IT teams.
Exactly.
Mhm.
So that is our mission today. We're looking at a highly detailed comparative guide from Avius AI, and it pits Amazon's AWS Connect directly against Avius AI's own platform. We're going to strip away the buzzwords and look at the actual mechanics of what happens when a business finally decides to upgrade.
And it's a critical comparison, honestly, because it highlights a fundamental fork in the road for enterprise technology. We are not just talking about picking between two software vendors here. We're talking about choosing between two entirely different operational philosophies. So for you, someone who is actively making or maybe just advising on these high-level infrastructure decisions, we really need to look past the top-line promises of lower costs.
Yeah.
We're going to bring down the architectural, the financial, and the strategic differences between deploying a mature cloud contact center, a CTS, and deploying a true AI-first voice agent platform.
Okay, let's unpack this, because while both of these platforms promise massive intelligence upgrades over those clunky legacy solutions, they take radically different paths to get you there.
They really do.
One approach essentially upgrades the building your team works in. You're giving them better tools, faster elevators. The other approach bypasses the building entirely and just hires you a new kind of staff.
That is a great way to put it.
Let's start with the building upgrade.
Mhm.
When we look at AWS Connect, how should an engineering or an IT team conceptualize what they are actually buying?
Well, you have to categorize it correctly within the telecom stack. AWS Connect is firmly a CTS contact center as a service. That means it sits much higher up the value chain than low-level CPaaS platforms. Like, if you're building with Twilio or AWS's own Chime SDK, you're basically playing with raw APIs to embed voice into a custom app.
Right, you're building from scratch.
Exactly. But AWS Connect is a fully managed digital contact center environment. It natively integrates with the AWS ecosystem you likely already use. So you're utilizing Lambda functions for your backend logic, S3 for your call recording storage, and CloudWatch for observability.
And it is a powerhouse for omni-channel routing.
Mhm.
I mean, you get dynamic queues, incredibly granular skills-based routing, and you can configure these massive complex IVR trees.
Oh, yeah. The routing is top tier.
But looking at the source material, the defining characteristic of AWS Connect is that the AI is an add-on. It's a highly robust infrastructure layer designed to route a customer to a human being as efficiently as possible.
Right?
You build a contact center first, and then you bolt on Amazon Lex bots for basic self-service, or maybe Contact Lens for sentiment analysis.
And that is the crucial distinction. It is infrastructure first, AI second. You are building a digital arena for your human agents to perform in. Now, contrast that with Avius AI. What's fascinating here is that Avius AI operates on an entirely different assumption.
How so?
It's not trying to be a better switchboard for human agents. It is designed to be an autonomous front line. The name itself actually stands for Automated Virtual Intelligence Utilizing Smart AI.
Okay, so the platform is built entirely around multi-turn conversational agents. We aren't talking about a voice menu that forces a caller to say sales or support and then just dumps them into a whole queue.
No, not at all.
We're talking about agents utilizing large language models to interact in natural language. They're designed to query your CRM, take actions, update records, and really just handle the workflow end to end.
Which completely changes the workforce model. AWS Connect makes your human team more efficient, sure. But Avius AI actively seeks to minimize human agent time altogether. It treats human intervention as the exception, like an escalation path, for only the most highly sensitive or complex issues that the AI is explicitly instructed not to touch.
Let's ground this in a real-world scenario to really show the difference in execution.
Okay, let's do it.
Imagine a customer calling an airline to reschedule a flight during a massive winter storm.
A nightmare scenario for any contact center.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So with a traditional CK setup like AWS Connect, the system recognizes the phone number, dips into the CRM, sees the canceled flight, and uses a Lex bot to ask, "Are you calling about your flight to Chicago?"
Mm-hmm.
The customer says yes. The bot then routes them to the highest priority queue for the rebooking desk. It's a brilliant, frictionless routing experience. But ultimately, that customer is still waiting on hold for a human agent to execute the complex rebooking logic.
Precisely. The infrastructure worked flawlessly, but the bottleneck remains the human workforce's capacity. Now, in that exact same winter storm scenario, an AI-first platform like Avius handles it entirely differently.
Walk us through that.
The AI recognizes the canceled flight, asks the customer if they want to rebook, listens to the customer say, yes, I need to get there by Tuesday morning, but I refuse to have a layover in Denver, and then the AI autonomously searches the inventory.
Wow.
It proposes a new itinerary and executes the ticket exchange right then and there. The multi-turn context is maintained without ever bridging to a human.
That structural difference is massive,
Mm.
and it naturally bleeds directly into the economics, right?
Hmm.
If you're fundamentally offering who or what is executing the work, the financial models have to look different. Let's pivot to how these platforms impact the bottom line, starting with the predictable cloud costs of AWS Connect.
Sure. AWS Connect operates on a standard, transparent, pay-as-you-go model. It's usage-based. You pay a specific fraction of a cent per added minute of telephony for inbound or outbound calls. And then you pay additional line item costs for the Lex bots, the storage, and the analytics.
And for a procurement team, that is a very comfortable model.
Yeah.
I mean, if you know your peak human logged in hours, your average call durations, and your historical monthly call volumes, you can forecast your operational expenditure with really high accuracy.
Yeah, plus you have enterprise volume discounts. It makes sense on a spreadsheet.
But here's where it gets really interesting. When you try to apply that same per-minute logic to Avius AI, you run into what the sources define as the pricing paradox of AI.
Right, the pricing paradox. It's a paradox because the raw per minute cost of an AI-first platform often looks higher than a standard telecom minute.
Okay, why is that?
With Avius AI, you aren't just paying for the SIP trunking and the dial tone. The platform bundles incredibly computationally heavy technologies right into that minute. You're paying for the real-time speech-to-text transcription, the underlying LLM that's processing the intent and reasoning, the text-to-speech generation, and the back-end orchestration workflows.
Wait, if I'm an IT director defending a budget to the CFO, and I put a spreadsheet in front of them where the AI minute costs noticeably more than a standard cloud minute, how do I justify that? I mean, the immediate reaction is going to be that the AI is just too expensive to scale.
You justify it by changing the metric of success. The per-minute cost is a legacy telecom metric. The business value metric is cost per resolved issue.
Ah, cost per resolved issue.
Exactly. The entire bet of an AI-first architecture is the drastic reduction in average handle time and the elimination of human labor for repetitive workflows. If you have a human agent handling a password reset or a scheduling change, that call might take 5 to 7 minutes.
Plus the overhead of the agent's salary, benefits, and the software licensing for their seat.
Exactly. So if the AI can resolve that exact same scheduling change in 60 seconds of natural conversation, the math flips. Even if that single minute of AI compute time is priced higher than a standard telecom minute, you just eliminated 6 minutes of human labor and infrastructure costs.
The cost per resolved issue just plummets.
It plummets. And that doesn't even factor in the opportunity cost of having your human agents tied up on mundane tasks. When you shift the bulk of the repetitive execution to the AI, your human workforce is suddenly freed up to handle revenue-generating interactions or complex relationship management.
So the economics only make sense when you view the AI not as software, but as labor.
Spot on. You have to view it as labor.
Viewing software as labor is a tough mental leap for a lot of legacy organizations. And frankly, understanding the financial benefit is the easy part. The real nightmare is the actual migration. Let's talk about the pain of moving away from an on-premise KBX system. We all know organizations that are still running critical routing logic on a server sitting in a broom closet because nobody knows how to safely turn it off.
Oh, the legendary broom closet server,
Yeah.
yes. The migration process is universally daunting. The source material outlines the necessary phases, beginning with deep inventory and planning. And this is usually where the skeletons in the IT closet are found.
I bet.
You aren't just porting numbers. You are uncovering decade-old IVR trees, undocumented failover rules, and custom routing logic that the original developer never bothered to write down.
Have you ever tried to untangle a 10-year-old routing matrix? It is terrifying. You find out that a critical priority queue only works because of a manual workaround someone built in 2018.
Right. And once you map that chaos, you move into number porting, workflow design, and finally, testing and phased rollouts. But how AWS Connect and Avius AI approach this migration phase is vastly different.
Okay, let's break that down.
AWS Connect is highly attractive during migration because it allows for a near one-to-one recreation of your existing environment. You can take that messy legacy IVR tree and just mirror it in the cloud.
So you're modernizing the infrastructure without forcing a massive operational change on day one.
Exactly. It heavily reduces change management friction because the human agents and the customers experience a very familiar call flow.
It's the safe bet. You get out of the broom closet and into the cloud without rocking the boat. But with Avius AI, you cannot just mirror a clunky press 1 for sales menu.
No, absolutely not. To get the performance payoff with Avius AI, you have to completely redesign the workflow around conversational automation. You're building intents, training the agent on your knowledge base, designing API touchpoints,
The upfront heavy lifting is much more intense. It has this massive 200 call capacity, but you have to build the logic to handle that scale autonomously.
which is why the sources offer a highly pragmatic recommendation. For
Mm.
large enterprises, especially those already embedded in the AWS ecosystem, it doesn't have to be a binary choice.
Oh,
You can employ a strategic blended approach. You use AWS Connect as your primary migration vehicle to get off the legacy hardware quickly and standardize your cloud infrastructure. Implement some basic AI features there first.
okay, but wait, a blended solution sounds great on paper, but doesn't running two parallel platforms just double the IT team's workload? Aren't you basically asking a stressed engineering team to manage two completely different telecom beasts, complete with different security models and integration requirements?
It is a totally valid concern, which is why the sequencing is critical. You don't launch them simultaneously.
Hmm,
Phase one is the lift and shift to AWS Connect. You stabilize your baseline, establish your security governance, and get your team comfortable operating in the cloud.
that makes sense.
Then phase two is targeted piloting. You carve out specific, high ROI use cases and route only those specific call flows to the Avius AI platform once things are stable.
So you don't unleash the autonomous agents on your most sensitive, high-value customer retention calls right out of the gate.
Hmm.
You point Avius AI at the heavy lifting, repetitive tasks. You configure it to handle all your after-hour support so customers aren't hitting a dead-end voicemail.
Yeah, exactly.
Use it for high-volume appointment setting, pre-screening routine inbound queries, or conducting outbound confirmation calls.
It is a de-risking strategy. You isolate the complex AI implementation to the workflows, where it will have the most immediate impact on your cost per resolved issue, while the broader organization continues to operate on the stable AWS Connect backbone.
That's incredibly smart.
This blended approach allows an enterprise to build internal competency with generative AI at a sustainable pace.
Let's zoom out from the immediate tactical deployment for a second, because the urgency behind this modernization effort isn't just about saving money on handle times or retiring old servers. The sources point to a much larger macro trend regarding operational resilience.
Yes. If we connect this to the bigger picture, the technology landscape is experiencing a severe reckoning regarding centralized infrastructure. The sources highlight the October 2025 cloud collapse.
Oh man, for anyone managing IT, that was a watershed moment.
Truly.
We saw massive cascading global internet outages hitting major centralized services. Amazon, Zoom, and Tier 1 telecom providers all experienced catastrophic downtime.
It was complete chaos. Entire contact centers went completely dark. If you were a business relying 100% on a centralized CK architecture and that region went down, your customers were getting dead air. It exposed the incredible fragility of modern cloud dependencies.
And that event forced a massive reevaluation of disaster recovery. It is no longer just about having data backups in a different server region. It's about what the sources term AI continuity.
AI continuity, yes. When centralized human routing infrastructure fails, having autonomous AI agents capable of independent horizontal scaling becomes your operational lifeline.
Because if your human contact center goes offline, but your AI agents are deployed across a decentralized or multi-cloud setup, those agents can still answer the phone.
Exactly.
They can still capture customer intent, execute basic workflows, log support tickets, and maintain a functional front line. It transforms a total blackout into a managed degradation of service.
And the necessity of that resilience is reflected in how rapidly massive organizations are adopting this technology. The sources note that as of mid-2025, the U.S. Pentagon began actively integrating AI to boost productivity and efficiency across their operations.
And to be clear, we are looking at that purely from a technological maturity standpoint. When an entity with the scale, the compliance red tape, and the intense security requirements of the U.S. military makes AI a cornerstone of their operational strategy, It sends a massive signal to the enterprise market.
It really does. It validates that the technology is enterprise ready. It proves that the security and hallucination mitigation models of these LLMs have moved far beyond experimental sandbox projects.
But the push isn't just coming from the top down. It's coming from consumer behavior. The sources provide a really striking data point regarding voice SEO. As of March 2026, voice search powers 58% of all internet searches.
Over half of all searches.
Think about the implications of that for a moment. Customers are fundamentally abandoning the keyboard in favor of conversational queries. They expect to speak to technology and have it understand their intent perfectly.
Right. And if a consumer finds your business through a natural language voice search, and then they call your support line only to be met with a rigid press 1 for this, press 2 for that legacy menu, the friction is just jarring.
It's a terrible experience.
Yeah.
The consumer expectation has shifted. Conversational AI is no longer a bleeding-edge differentiator. It is a foundational requirement to meet the customer where they are. If you cannot ingest and process natural language over the phone, you are actively degrading your customer experience compared to the consumer tech they use every single day. So what does this all mean? We've covered the architectural divide between CKAIs and true AI orchestration. We debated the pricing paradox of cost per minute versus cost per resolution. We navigated the horrors of migration and the strategic value of a blended deployment. But for you, the person listening, analyzing these concepts on a deep dive or reading a vendor spec sheet only gets you so far.
Theory is useless without practical validation. You can read about multi-turn, context windows, and sub-second latency all day, but until you actually interact with an autonomous agent, it is difficult to grasp how fundamentally different it feels from a traditional bot.
Which is why you cannot afford to just take our word for it or the source material's word for it. You need to try to break it. The sources strongly emphasize that the only way to evaluate this technology is through aggressive hands-on testing.
Definitely.
You can actually access the Avius AI demo directly and role-play your most difficult business scenarios by calling 855-284-8196. I highly recommend you write that down and test it. Call 855-284-8196 and see what happens when you throw a complex workflow at it.
And when you make that call to 855-284-8196, you shouldn't just be listening to the voice quality. You need to stress test the specific technical capabilities we've been discussing.
What should they look out for?
First, test the latency. Does the conversational rhythm feel natural, or is there that awkward 2-second processing delay that plagues older generation bots? Second, test the natural language comprehension by actively interrupting the AI. Change your mind mid-sentence.
Oh, that was a good test.
Say, actually, no, don't do that. Change the date to Friday instead. See if the LLM can maintain the context of the conversation despite the disruption.
Because that interruption test is the ultimate benchmark. A legacy bot will crash and ask you to repeat the main menu options. A true autonomous agent will adapt and update the parameters seamlessly.
Exactly. And finally, test the actual workflow execution. Don't just ask it a FAQ question. Ask it to complete a task and see if it can autonomously drive the interaction to a resolution without trying to offload you to a human representative.
That level of rigorous, practical testing is what separates organizations that are strategically modernizing from those that are just buying shiny new software. Understanding the nuance between infrastructure-heavy CCOs and an AI-first orchestration platform empowers you to make decisions based on architectural reality rather than vendor hype.
It equips you to walk into that budget meeting and clearly articulate why your metrics are changing, why a blended migration path protects the business, and how AI continuity insulates you from the next massive cloud outage.
You are no longer just keeping the lights on. You are fundamentally redesigning the capabilities of your enterprise.
And as we look at the trajectory of this technology, this raises an important question. We are watching AI voice agents rapidly evolve from simple triage bots into the default autonomous frontline, capable of executing complex, multi-turn workflows with incredible efficiency. If that trend continues its current acceleration, what does the human exception look like in the year 2030? As autonomous agents take over the execution of almost all routine logic and data manipulation, will the most valuable, highly compensated human skill in the corporate world simply become the raw empathy required to handle the uniquely human problems that an AI outright refuses to solve?
That is a profound thought to end on. If the AI handles the execution, humans are left entirely with the emotion. Thank you for joining us on this deep dive. We hope this breakdown gives you the clarity to tackle your own infrastructure challenges and cut through the market noise. Keep asking the tough questions, keep pushing the boundaries of what these systems can do, and definitely make that call to test the tech for yourself. We'll get you on the